Hello, Vivian. Good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to today's session. Hello, Vivian.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. First in class.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay, welcome to today's session. You're first into the session. How does it feel?
It feels good.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's been 4 weeks gone. This is the fifth week. So how has the course been for you so far?
It has been insightful and very nice.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. That's the reason about this program. It's one very, very all-rounded program because it's really put together for us to go through. For anyone who wants a career in entertainment law, so far we've gone through the major tenets of entertainment law. We've gone from film, we've gone to music, we've gone to fashion, and today we'll be looking at
Photography.
photography and visual works. So it's been simply amazing. That tells you how robust this particular program is. Okay, welcome, welcome. I can see Zenny Lee has joined us on the call in the session today, and I see. Okay, I think our mentor is already with us. I see John Praise as well on the call here in this session. Okay, so I'll be moving right up into today's meeting as people join us would continue to welcome them and carry on in today's discussion. Do not forget, this is still JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program for the first and second quarter in the year 2024. It is entertainment, business, and law course. This is week 5. My name is Goslov Kamaloni, and I'll be your moderator for today. So it's a special honor having you all in today's session. Today we're going to be dealing with photography and visual works. As I said earlier, for those who joined earlier, we have gone through almost every part of what it takes to be in the entertainment space. We've looked at film, at fashion, and we're looking at photography. Photography today. I hope I did not miss any of the topics we've been privileged to go through so far. So it's really incredible. It's really incredible what you can gain from this particular program. Okay, so do not forget that we're in week 5. That means the next quarter will already begun with registrations. You can register for another course you think you would love to partake in, or you can always send the flyer, refer someone to the program. Okay, having said that, welcome to week 5 here at the Entertainment Business and Law course. It is photography and visual works. I do not want to go too far because we have our amazing mentors with us in the session already. Okay, we have 2 of our 3 mentors for today. I believe within the hour we have our final mentor join us on in today's session rather. Okay, our first mentor is no newcomer to the JIIPCC program. She is a certified celebrity here here at JIIPCC because she's done a phenomenal job year in, year out. Every quarter she's been here to share her wisdom with us. That's no other person than, I call her the IP goddess. That's beautiful Mrs. Shukurat Modupe Ola Amosa. Thank you so much, ma'am, for always being here with us. I know that over the course of this the class, we've seen so much about her works. But just to reiterate on a few things, Shukirat is a seasoned intellectual property consultant, analyst, and educator with public sector experience. Of course, do not forget she holds a master's degree in IP from the prestigious African University Zimbabwe in collaboration with WIPO and the Japan government. Yes, she's an alumni of the WIPO and a member of the WIPO International Network for IP Education, as well as a training. Okay, I've lost that. But don't forget that she's one of us who has been doing so great job. And if you are on LinkedIn, you will surely enjoy so much from her because on Instagram, she has this fantastic outlet. That's the intangible nuggets where she gives us back-to-back amazingness when it comes to IP and over it pertains, other pertains to IP. Okay, still with us in this session, we have another phenomenal mentor for today. That is the amazing Adedumade. I hope I got that correctly. Adedumade Onibokun. Okay, so Mr. Adedumade Onibokun, welcome to today's session. His legal practice focuses on corporate and commercial law, and he represents organizations and individuals. He is the managing partner of the Adedumade Onibokun and Co. That's at AOC Legal, and also the author of the Legal Rights and Obligations under Nigerian Law and Social Media for Lawyers. You can read his blog, that's the www.legalninja.com, or follow him at Legal Ninja on X, that's Twitter, also on Instagram and Facebook, where he shares legal tips for individuals and businesses. Welcome so much. Welcome to this session, Mr. Onibokun. It's really a pleasure having you in today's session. Also joining us soon is the amazing Zerona Duke Phillips. Zerona Duke Phillips is an alumnus of the University of Pennsylvania Carey School of Law and the New York Film Academy with certificates in filmmaking and producing. Zerona Duke Phillips is a New York bar and Nigerian bar certified attorney possessing varied experience in intellectual property law, art, media, entertainment law, and project finance. She has advised on diverse transactions for multi-million-dollar infrastructure projects and transcontinental financial acquisitions to trademark and copyright protection and, of course, enforcement. As a songwriter and filmmaker, she has a unique perspective and understanding of the creative aspects as well as the business of entertainment. She uses her perspective in advising and advocating for her clients in the various IP and entertainment industries. One more time, welcome to Zerona Duke Phillips. I believe we'll be having her soon joining us in today's session. Okay, now that's the introduction for our phenomenal mentors. Thank you so much, Deborah. I can see you're engaging us already. Do not forget, mentees, here at JIIPCC, it's all about your participation. It's not just being in class. So you know how we do it here in the entertainment, business, and law session. You must be active, you must be involved, you must get in line with the program, which means when we call on you, we need you to actively get involved. The chat box should not be left bare for any reason. As mentors are speaking, ensure that you're taking down notes, you're reiterating some things that said, you're following up the discussion. That's what makes you a phenomenal mentee here at JIIPCC and prepares you for the final exams. Okay, our three mentors are here. Welcome to Zerona Phillips to today's session. So to kick off, ladies and gentlemen, I think let's give a new face to the program. Let's hear him give his wisdom. That's Mr. Onibokun of the Legal Lexus, of Law Lexus, Legal Lexus. Welcome to you, Mr. Onibokun, to JIIPCC. It's a pleasure having you with us. Okay, so this is how we move over here. We're going to have you have your introductory statement for about, let's say, 15 minutes on the topic. Let's hear you introduce the topic to our mentees and let them get to understand what it means. So we talk about IP, or let's say the law and photography and visual work and how it works for entertainment business. And once more, thank you and welcome to JIIPCC. Carry on,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Yes, thank you so very much for having me. It's a huge pleasure to be here. Also, particularly to be joining my sisters as fellow mentors. Um, I'm highly, shall I say, grateful for the introduction and for the invitation as well. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, I understand, or should I say, I am not sure about the stages of career in which our fellow mentees are. I don't know if you're lawyers, I don't know if you're creatives, but I believe that irrespective of the area in which you fall into, that this session is going to be very valuable to you. First of all, a little introduction about myself. A lot has been said already. I'll adopt that. Yes, and also I want to talk about the Nigerian creative industry. I know that many of you have been involved in the entertainment scene, either as music artists, either as promoters of artists, or either as a creative in whatever form. So you have a basic understanding. Also, I want to believe that because you've been involved in the series, right, the Gypsy series, I want to believe that you have a clear understanding of what that entails. So the Nigerian creative industry, right, is broken down into three parts, majorly. The first part is, of course, the music and entertainment. The second part is movies, film, media. And the third part is art. Many of you will agree with me that the music, Nigerian music is everywhere, global now, right? Nigerian movies as well are everywhere. We're global in that respect. Nigerian art is global, but not as global as books, as the first two. And under art, I'm going to put visual arts and also photography, which we're talking about today. They're very interesting arts, and I want you to understand, which I hope you already do, and if you don't, I would like to reiterate that there are two sides to this industry. There's the business side to it, and there's the legal side to it. This is from your point of view, right? I'm talking from a lawyer's point of view now. If you're a creative, your point of view might be different. You might be looking at it from the area of your talent, your music, your skill, in that regard. But I'm speaking from a lawyer's point of view. So to me, and due to my engagement with the industry, there are two sides to it. There's the business side and there's the legal side. And both of them intertwine perfectly. The legal side, of course, involves contracts, copyright, intellectual property, things like that. The business side, on the other side, it basically has to do with making money of that kind, right? And that's why you agree with you that there's a very wonderful mix between the two of them, because if you have your legal right, your chances of making money also will increase as well, right? And then that's the thin line between both of them, and that's how they merge beautifully. Our focus today is art and photography. So in the industry, I have decided to focus on art here. And the reason why I do that is because I grew up around. I grew up with my dad having artworks at home. I grew up having sculptures at home. So I had already grown, like, should I say, to this area of the entertainment industry, unbeknownst to me. So when I became a lawyer, I found myself still interested in the arts, and most particularly in the plight of artists, or visual artists. because I was very concerned about their work, because I love their work, and naturally just gravitated to their business side. Like I said, when you think of the industry, you think of the business side, and you think of the legal side. So of course I saw the art, I loved it, and I started to ask them questions, what is legal like for you? What is business like for you? And I realized that there was a lacuna in that area. We need a lot of support, especially with the amount of interaction that they have. There's so many beautiful artists that we have in Nigeria. So that's why I particularly love art law. That's why I'm part of it. And of course, art law is also photography. Photography comes part of that as well. And I also like to mention a certain way in which both of them interact when they conflict. So yes, there are beautiful areas of expression. Yes, they are created by talented people. Yes, they might be fetching a whole lot of money on the market, either way. However, what happens when they conflict? What happens when there's a dispute between the art and the photography? And there are instances in which it happens, and I'll give you one for example. So I don't know if there's a visual artist in the room, but imagine that you take a picture, right? And of course, many of us know that the person that takes the picture is the owner of the picture. The intellectual property rights in the picture lie in the creator. So you take a picture and you post it on your Twitter, you post it on your Instagram, you post it on your Facebook, you post it on your TikTok, you make a video, and an artist sees that picture and really likes it. And he draws what you have taken a picture of, he expresses it through art. Well, it's the same thing. He got that idea of the picture. What happens in that regard as the intellectual property of that photographer being infringed on? That is one thing I would like us to consider. And there are classic cases in this regard. For instance, there is the issue with the Warhol. I'll just give you a brief gist of what happened. I don't know if many of us know Prince. Prince is an artist that reigned, should I say, in the 90s, maybe the 2000s, died a couple of years ago. So Prince, yes, was a popular artist, and a photographer took a picture of him. Now, that photographer licensed that picture to a magazine, right, to use in their cover. So they paid him for licensing. That photograph was owned by a woman. I can't really remember her name now. So she licensed to the magazine to use that picture of Prince that was taken, in the cover. The magazine now calls an artist, Warhol, right, and tells him to create a picture from that image that they have been licensed to use for their cover. That is the purpose why they took the license in the first place. So that was totally fine. However, what we do not know is that Warhol created 6 other pictures that he did not share. It was only until Prince died, right, that those artworks, that series of 6 that he created now became public. Then the owner of that picture, now I want to share that this happened years apart. It happened like over 10, 15 years apart. That is the year in which the license was given and when all this finally came out. So like I was saying, it came out, the owner saw the artwork and she sued the magazine and the artist, saying that, I remember giving you the license, but I didn't give you a license to create this artwork. The case went all the way to the US Supreme Court. The first court decided that what the artist created was unique and it fell under fair use, right? The appeal court, said that was wrong, and that because what was created came from that initial artwork and it wasn't transformative, so to say, that's where the debate about being transformative came out from. So yeah. The appeal court did not agree with the High Court, so they asked the artist to pay damages to the owner of that license company that mentioned that name. But he sued to the Supreme Court again. And then the Supreme Court held the same thing. So I tell artists now, because I know that for visual artists, sometimes that inspiration can come from anywhere. So you can be scrolling to your social media page and you can see a picture and you can say, oh, great, I want to draw this. You know, that's totally natural. And you take it and draw it. The thing is, you might be infringing on the copyright of that person, especially if what you create is not transformative. Now, I'll give you an example of what transformative can look like. So imagine a picture of a person, right? And you want to draw that person. Let's say that person is in a car, right? That's the picture, right? The person is in a car, and let's say the background is a shopping mall, right? And the artist sees that and he wants to draw that. But he draws the artist, he draws that person, maybe not in the car, but standing outside the car, right? Maybe not a car, but a bicycle or a power bike, you know, or another form of vehicle. And maybe the background is not the shopping mall, right? But maybe a housing estate, just to say, right? That is how transformative can come into play. Something that is totally different and cannot be compared as the original. I said this is the same thing as the original, just something totally different, something transformative, you know, in that regard. So that is one area in which there can be a conflict between art and photography, and I hope I've been able to explain how that comes into play. So I'll just round up here now, so that the other mentors can speak. If there are any questions that are directed to me, I'll be here and willing to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It's such a pleasure having you again with us, and that's a very, very nice way to start today's discussion. The legal part of it, how to marry both of them, because you need to make your money as well as protect your work and ensure that you're reaping the best fruit out of it. One more time, thank you so much, sir. Mentees, thank you so for thanking our mentor for a phenomenal start to today's session. Okay, so I don't know if I know I can see her online. I'm trying to reach her privately, but a woman who would always say this things, create it, protect it, enforce it, and all that when it comes to IP. And the woman who does a whole lot of great work on Instagram with intangible nuggets. And I think lately we follow her on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. She posted something about a tattoo artist who tattooed someone's picture to a client's hand, and then there was an issue as to whether there was a breach of someone's copyright in the picture used, or I think she would give more explanation on that. I know I read that up on her, I think that was on her LinkedIn. I read that up, and she wrote quite a nice piece on it and asked for our own advice or our own take on it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know already she's been here with us, the IP goddess, the woman who knows so much when it comes to the IP space. Please welcome to today's discussion the beautiful Amosa Modipola Shukurat. Welcome, ma'am. It's an honor having you with us this evening. Please let's have an introduction and insights on today's topic. It's photography and visual work. Welcome.
Hi, Joseph. Good evening. Hi.
Hello, good evening. Vera, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me again today. So I would like to say a very good job to the previous speaker, Adedumade, if I'm right. I think he has covered the basics because we have this kind of clash when it comes to photography, artistic work, the medium of expression, how it was expressed. If there's a change in medium, will it constitute infringement? The trademark issue as well. And I think the previous speaker has actually spoke on the copyright aspect. So I'll speak more on the trademark aspect, and I'll give an example relating to just the exact same example he gave, but this is a different case entirely. So a photographer or a visual artist, what IP rights or what elements of IP will you find in your kind of business? So the first thing first you want to look at is copyright, right? Because copyright protects literary and artistic work. And if you look at the Copyright Act, you will see that literary works, artistic works, sound recording, musical works, audiovisual works, and broadcast. These are the kind of work that are protected under copyright. So this photography also falls under what we call maybe the artistic work, right? So as long as it is covered under copyright, it means once you create an original work and it's fixed in a medium, it enjoys copyright protection. And like we know, you don't have to go and register your copyright before you get protection, right? Copyright exists automatically the moment you've created an original work and you fixed it in a particular medium. So the moment you have a work, original and fixed, you have copyright protection over it. However, it is advisable for you to always notify, I won't call it registration, okay? I would say it's advised always notify the registry, or probably you deposit a copy of your work with the registry, although it's still going to attract you to pay money, right? That's what they call registration, but it's not really registration because registration is not a criteria. It exists automatically as long as you meet up with those criteria of fixation and originality. Now, the issue is, as a photographer, like, in fact, how many of us here has done birthday shoots or marriage shoot or this and that? You know, in fact, we just go to the photographer to put some effect and all. And if you agree with me, if I use my phone to take a picture, it might not come out the way a professional photographer is going to do it, right? If you look at the angle, it sets the angle, put in this, put in that, the background, the contrast. It'll tell you, oh yeah, do like this and bend, do this, do that. All of these things, they are creativity. And those creativity, they are original to the author. And a very good example we always cite is the case of the monkey and narrator and David Slatter. So that's a very good example. Generally, you see that everywhere. So this photographer, David Slatter, you know, he already put the camera in a space whereby he's just trying to position it whereby it can capture nature. And before you knew it, a gorilla, Naruto, just went there and just clicked on the capture button and it captured. And the issue was, who owns copyright? Is it the monkey? Is it the photographer? Right? But as we know that intellectual property generally doesn't give rights to the animals other than humans. That's to be an human being, right? However, what the judge stated in that case was that a particular amount of the money was given to the animal housing where they're taking care of those animals, because it was the body of the organization that was trying to defend the monkey, saying you can't use this monkey's picture anyhow, because the photographer was he was monetizing the image, you know, like it's my photograph now, it's my camera, it's my photograph, I have the rights. So it was monetizing the image anyhow. Then the organization for protect the right of the animal were like, no, you can't do that. The monkey owns the rights, and that's why we have to draw the line of monkeys cannot own rights, and the same applies to AI as well, although the laws in different jurisdictions are kind of different. So that's the basis of ownership in copyright. Now we come to the question of image rights, because we can't talk about copyright, or we can't talk about photography without mentioning image rights. So the subject of the image, what rights do you have as a subject? So the old Copyright Act, what it says was that you have to get permission. That's you, the subject. You need to get permission from the copyright holder, which is the photographer, before you can even post that image or make money from it, right? But the new Copyright Act 2022 now is saying that the purpose now is put into perspective. If the purpose of that shot or that photo shot you're going to do is for personal use, is for personal, it's three things, but personal, not public, is private, is personal, then the photographer cannot commercialize it without your permission. So that's what the new law is saying now. So what this means is that so photographers now, they need to put into consideration purpose of use in their contract. Because if the purpose of me coming to take this picture is a personal purpose, like I don't want my face out there, it's personal to me, and the photographer goes ahead to start monetizing it, then I can sue him, because that's not what the law says. The law says if it's for personal purpose or private use, then you can't commercialize without my permission. And the law now gives me, the subject of the image, a non-exclusive right to also use that image, but not for commercial purpose. So just like the photographer needs my permission before I can commercialize, I also need the photographer's permission before I can commercialize. So we need each other. The photographer's right is copyright. My right is more or less like an image right or a personality right, kind of. So now, let's now look at what happens when the medium changes. A photograph is here, and a visual artist tries to pen or probably ink the photograph on somebody's body. So that's the case I was talking about. There's this recent case about 2 weeks ago. There's this photographer, Kat Von D or so, something like that. So she inked the photograph of a well-known person on a friend's shoulder. So a photographer already took the image. She took the image and inked it on the person's body as a tattoo. And the photographer said, oh, look, you are infringing on my rights, because what you did is you just used my photograph and you brought out the same image. There's no difference. And this brings us to the issue of transformation and fair use. At what point can we say a work has been transformed? Just like the previous speaker said about the Prince case. Is it transformative? Is it really transformative? What do we classify as transformative? And now the photographer was trying to defend himself and saying that this tattoo artist has a very large audience on social media. And she posting that image on her social media, even though she didn't commercialize it, she kind of indirectly monetized it because it opened more opportunities for her. And people are able to say, oh, just collaborate, let's do this, let's do that. So at what point can we say a social media influence, can we say it can, I don't know how to put it now, does it generate, even though it's not commercializable, like it's not something that is we are saying physically, but at least one way or the other, you are making money from it, right? So these are things we need to put into consideration. What does the fair use law says, and what does transformation mean? So does it mean if I take a photograph and I go ahead to photocopy it, is it infringement? If I take a photograph and I just decide to draw the same thing out on paper, is it infringement? Or should we say just because of the medium has changed, but the same image, we are still using the same image, does a change in medium, does it translate to fair use, or does it translate to infringement? So those are some questions we want to ask ourselves. And when it comes to the aspect of trademark, this one is very popular. Even we do it consciously or subconsciously. So a photographer takes your image and you kind of crop his logo away because, well, it's my image. I don't need to promote the photographer that snapped the picture. Now you are doing that. What you are doing now is wrong because you are trying to say, I took this image myself. You cropping out the photographer's logo or his trademark or whatever it is, it means you are trying to deprive him of his rights. And that is one other thing. So photographers need to look out more for copyright law and trademark law. And I think there was a trademark case, Owusu's Lens and Waka Now. So what happened is Owusu's Lens is a photographer. He took a photograph of, there's this festival they do in, I can't remember what part of the country, but it's in the east, maybe Bayelsa also, I can't remember. There's this roundabout, right? So he took an image of that roundabout with the ladies dancing and the festival going on and that. Fortunately for him, he registered that work with NCC, or let me say, he deposited the work with NCC. So at least that gives him more coverage and he can prove in case of infringement. Now, what happened is Waka Now went ahead to use that image to promote their own ad because Waka Now is into travel and tours, airlines, and so on. So they were trying to say, oh, come and fly with us to this particular city. They were trying to show how beautiful that city is. But doing so, they picked Owusu's Lens image. They picked that photograph and used it. And what did they do? They committed 2 acts. Number 1, copyright offense. They cropped Owusu's Lens trademark offense. So that's two different things. Now, when they were going to defend themselves, they said because that particular junction is a government area. So we need to look at what point does a T junction or a roundabout, does it constitute government property for you to say that, oh, this particular image or this particular thing doesn't attract intellectual property protection? Because, like, when it comes to trademark, you can't register emblem, you can't register national flag, you can't register this. So their defense was that that particular roundabout junction is a government property kind of, and so doesn't have protection, right? But even if they are to argue that, we need to look at the originality and the kind of work also let's put into that for that image to come out the way it did. If it didn't come out well, they're not going to use it, right? So we need to recognize his creativity and originality in that image. So I think I'm just going to stop here and allow the third speaker speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always a pleasure hearing you speak or listening to you speak, and how much you make IP just so fun and about all this. Please, if you're not following on intangible nuggets, you're surely missing out, because I think this Osa's case on Waka, we've actually seen it there before. She's written about it. And she's put out some food for thought, some questions that we need to answer before the end of this session. What then can we say is fair use when it comes to photography, IP, and usage? What then we say is a transformative process? Okay, so let's put a pin on that, because we have our third speaker or our third mentor with us this evening. And of course, she's hyped, she's pumped, and she's ready to give us a multi-million-dollar presentation and opening to today's topic. And that's no other than the beautiful Zenona Phillips. Welcome, ma'am. It's such an honor having you with us today in the session. Welcome to Entertainment Business and Law course. Thank you for joining us. Please, the floor is yours for your opening statements.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for welcoming me back. I want to first of all give like a huge round of applause to my colleagues for their presentations. I think I might end up piggybacking on a lot of what has already been said, to be honest. But what I do want to concentrate on today is on cross-border transactions in photography and fine arts. So essentially in Nigeria right now, is it okay if I share my screen?
It's perfect. It's perfect. Thank you.
All right. Right. Bear with me a moment. Trying to figure this out. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can see the personal visual arts and photographs.
Okay, amazing. So, like I said, I've just fast forwarded it a little bit because we've already discussed certain things, but Nigeria right now, I think, is it's shining bright on the global stage. So, and our arts, photography, all of that, it's not exempt at all from this attention. And so, here I wanted us to, I wanted to talk a little bit about the kinds of the heads up. Let me put it that way. What kind of heads up you would need to give your clients, or know as a lawyer dabbling in this area, when it comes to international transactions in art. So first thing is there are four key things to keep in mind. One is intellectual property protection. We cannot stress it enough. Oftentimes investors won't want to do anything at all unless they know that you have registered it. And yes, copyright, like we've said, is automatic, right? As soon as you've created it, it's fixed in a tangible medium, it's yours. But if it's not registered or deposited at the NCC, you do not have that notice. You have to now start going back to, like your phone, if you manage to take a picture on it, it just becomes messy. And so if you do that at the first stage, you finish it, you deposit a copy at the NCC, you can, stop thinking about it. It's already there. If you need it, it's there. This comes back again when you're dealing with international legal processes. If you already have it registered there, then you can skip a lot of steps, that you might otherwise have to jump through. So we'll look at that briefly. Then cross-border transactions and taxation, customs and imports, export regulations, and of course, contractual protection. All of those need to be considered when you're dealing with this area of law. So, intellectual property protection. If you're going into the international art market, you do need to make sure that your property is recorded there. It builds trust, it facilitates the legal process, and it just gives you more options when it comes to enforcing your intellectual property rights. What was I going to say on that? Sorry, going back a little bit. Artists want, or rather we're going to touch on this a little later, but I just want to mention it here since it's linked in. Sometimes, right, as an artist or, as an artist's attorney, when they are transporting their goods overseas, the buyer wants to make sure that there's a provenance, right? What's a provenance? A provenance essentially is like the history of the art. And it says that it was created by this person, then, ownership moved to this person, and so on and so forth. You can also call it a chain of title, right? And so when you have it registered with the NCC, that's, to some extent, you might describe that as the start points in the provenance, because you actually have a concrete document. When you're doing art professionally as a professional visual artist or professional photographer, you do want to make sure that you have properly locked down your provenance. Right, so cross-border transactions and taxation. When you are dealing with international law, it can be a headache because you're not just dealing with Nigerian law, you also have to liaise with all kinds of authorities, whether it's at the border, whether it's regulatory, etc. And so a great deal of research will need to be done. The first thing you need to do is research the destination country's taxes. In Nigeria, you would have to deal with VAT, which is value added tax. And that tax can be passed on to the customer here. So the artists themselves, it's the artist that would pay it as part of their tax, but they can move that tax to their customer, so collect it from the customer and then pay it to the relevant authority, right? But you have to bear in mind that different countries, why do I keep on saying companies? Different countries have different regulations when it comes to this. And so you do have to research it, know what the obligations are, etc., so that you can be compliant with it. Another thing is you'd have to factor in import duties and know exactly what the customs routine is like, right? We've had a number of clients who have been complaining because, they think it's all cut and dried over here, but then when it gets to the destination country, it ends up getting locked at customs. So as lawyers, our job is to make sure that we know exactly where it's going and if it's stopping anywhere in between. Sometimes you may have to have certain certificates, particularly, especially when you're dealing with artifacts, to say that, this person has permission to be receiving this artifact. It's not infringing on any laws or, such. So, yeah, we've kind of gone into this a bit, but yes, customs and import regulations. You want to make sure that you've gotten all the certificates that you would need. You should research the regulations. If there are any materials that are being used in the artwork, sometimes some photographers will use, oh, sorry, this is a bit too long, but hopefully you can still see it. Some photographers may use various chemicals, right? It's one thing, I mean, now it's the digital age, right? So oftentimes when we think of photography, it might just be the photo that you're looking at, maybe through some sort of digital medium. However, for photographers who are exhibiting their work, it likely will end up being printed, mounted, framed, all of that. Beyond the printing, they can decide the photograph is one thing, but the presentation of the photograph is another thing. And so what we're seeing now is that a lot of photographers do a mixed medium, right? And so I went to an exhibition recently, and the artist stroke photographer had taken a photograph, and then he put the photograph, he superseded the photograph on some sort of old photography film, and just layered and layered and layered. I can't explain exactly how he did it. All I know is that it happened and it was beautiful, right? But if you think about it, there's a number of chemicals that are involved in that. Sometimes it might not even be necessarily mixed in. It might just be something that's layered over the original photograph, and then another, it can get pretty convoluted because this is art. But long story short, if that final result, the final art piece that's being transported might have any sort of addition to it that is contrary to that country, the import country's laws, you're going to have a problem unless you've gotten the permits beforehand. So it's important to know all of these things when you're talking to your client. Make sure that you ask all the right questions. Get full details. The questions that you think are completely mundane, they might be looking at you sideways, like, why do you care about all of this? Like, I didn't know you liked art that much. It could be very relevant. Okay. I mentioned this earlier, identify any cultural artifacts and make sure that you get the requisite permits. And also, very importantly, make sure that you understand where the work is going to so that you do not offend anyone. Okay. In India, for example, they revere cows, and so if the work is a sculpture that would be offensive to, like some sort of artwork depicting a cow that, something bad is happening to the cow, maybe you might have to get some special permits and permissions to have that imported into India, so just something that you would have to think about. Then of course we have contractual protection. This goes without saying, we're lawyers, okay? When you're dealing with art, so as a visual artist, we've already spoken a bit about photographers as well as visual artists, right? But when you are dealing with the purchase of art and the transportation of art, you do want to make sure, depending on what side of the transaction you are, of course, but you do want to make sure that ownership is clearly stated, right? Copyright is one thing, but I own the copyright, you own the work. How does that work? Since it's now your work, does that mean that you can deface it however you want? You can paint the swastika or some sort of other offensive symbol on it, and then, what do you call it? Display it in public. Those kinds of issues or, terms will need to be spelled out. There's something called moral rights, right? And with moral rights, generally speaking, this is used across, all kinds of copyrights, right? We try and advise clients to make sure that as much as they can, they retain their moral rights. Often they'll it may be the person on the other side of the transaction may try and get you to waive it, but try and hold on to it, because it's with your moral rights that you can say, no, you cannot do anything that's going to either offend people or disparage my name, my brand name. Okay. Dispute resolution should be talked about, how they can use the work, etc. You want to think about all of that and make sure that it's very clearly stated with no ambiguity. So I will end it there, and just say that global artists, or we're now global artists. Nigeria is working on the global stage. So let's always remember that, put our best foot forward, and as lawyers representing these creative minds, let's ensure that we are well aware of the world beyond, the Nigerian border, and so that we can properly direct our artists adequately. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ooh, it's just amazing listening to you speak. That was a soothing presentation. Thank you. And really, really insightful. So much on. I think I got really, really an eye opener about cross countries, cross competing and cross transaction and over taxation. That was really, really. I've had a time where someone was trying to send an image to a cousin, I think, in the UK, and he had to go through some receipts, some documents. So now it made so much sense why he had to go through all of that, because he had to prove from the artist that the artist was the original author of the work and all that. So thank you so much, ma'am. Mentees here at JIIPCC will bring the absolute best to take us to the next level in the knowledge we're trying to get. Exactly, accolades. She deserves her flowers. Thank you. Okay, so we heard from our mentors in the first instance on the introduction to today's topic. We are going to go into our mentees next for their presentations. But before we do that, before it gets too dark, please, it's time for our picture time. I would love to solicit and plead that everyone turns on their cameras for us to have our picture time quickly. Yes, and please, as you turn on your cameras, kindly put a smile across your face for the pictures we're about to take. Okay, so don't forget, we're still here at the week 5 at entertainment and business and law here at the General Imam Property and Creative Consult Mentorship and Internship Program for the year 2024, first and second quarter. Okay. So quickly, we're taking the pictures. Please ensure to have your cameras turned on and put the beautiful smile. That smile that I think by the time we take these pictures, you should be asking for your moral rights. Who knows? Please don't own the copyright to this particular picture. Okay, thank you so much. I think we've gotten the pictures right now. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, quickly we'll move on to some very important persons who have a very important task for today's session. These are our mentees and our presenters from the various groups. You have 2 groups in this quarter. Okay, so can we start off with group 1? So let's make it a good day. So over to group 1 for their presentation. Please, group 1 presentation, take over, and presenter, take over. And if there's a backup presenter in the event where the presenter cannot take on the presentation, please back up, take on immediately. So over to you, group 1. Group 2, please get ready for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Favor. Good evening. Are you for group 1?
Yes, I'm for group 1.
Now, this is an awesome development. Thank you so much. My heart is imploding with so much joy. So thank you so much, and carry on, please.
Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know if someone can help me share my screen from their own end.
Okay, so while we call on Group 1 members to probably help with sharing of the screen, please favor you could carry on with your presentation regardless of the screen. I believe we'll still enjoy and have an amazing presentation from you regardless. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please, you can be heard loud and clear.
All right, so I'm talking about protection and monetization of photography and visual artworks. And our Group 1 outline for the right of a photographer, right of the photographed, digital watermarking and image recognition, benefits of watermarks, blockchain technology for art. So I'll just move straight to the introduction. Copyright is a form of intellectual property that covers photography. The right granted to the author or originator of a certain literary or artistic production, whereby the creator is invested for a limited period of time with the sole and exclusive privilege of multiplying copies. In essence, this talks about to photography. The photographer has the right to an image in which he has created, because like one of the mentors said, when if different from when I'll take a picture with my phone, and we see that no matter how, even let's say iPhone users now have, when they want to do a photo shoot or something, they will go to the studio to take a picture. But there's a kind of a difference, and there's a lot of creativity that goes on and is added to that one taking in the studio. So we're talking about the rights of photographers, and we just move on to section 2022 explains copyrights to mean in a work to mean the exclusive rights to control the doing of any of an artistic work, that is to duplicate the work in any format, to publish the work, to incorporate the work in any cinematographic film, and to alter the work in any way. Also, section 51 of the Act defines photograph, and it includes it to be part of that is part of an artistic work to be eligible for. So captured with a camera, and it's where the heat on light sent it either digitally recorded or chemically treated to make it visible and permanent. So now I'm talking about the eligibility for photography and visual works. What makes a photograph and visual work eligible for copyright protection? Section 1 sub 2 of the Copyright Act provides that a literary work shall not be eligible for copyright unless a sufficient effort has been expended on making the work to give it an original character eligible for copyright, except a creativity has been done to that, has been added to that work to make it an original character. The work has been fixed in any definite medium of expression known or later to be developed. So we cannot just say that this particular thing has for rights in it, except original amount of work has creativity has been added to it, and it has been fixed in a definite medium. And we know that photography can be created as long as already created and need to register photography before it can say it has copyright. But like our mentors also said, you have to give due notice just when, so that when you can go back to the NCC to make claims for it. So now ownership of photography and visual works copyright, the author and photographer ownership of a photograph, enabling the part to use it exclusively without permission from anybody else, including the person being photographed, unless a formal agreement is placed restricting the right. Also, during the class, our second mentor also mentioned that the copyright has kind of twisted the formal rule concerning who owns the photograph, and she explained that while a photographer has rights in it, he also needs to gain permission from the owner of the photograph. Likewise, the owner of the photograph too, when he or she wants to use it for a commercial purpose, also has to seek permission from the photographer. In the recent 2021 Court of Appeal case in Banire versus NTA Star TV Network Limited, the Court of Appeal upheld the photographer's ownership of the photographer's copyright. The statutory provision of Section 9 and 39, which confers ownership of photos on the photographer, received judicial proclamation. The current position of the law in Nigeria is that copyright vests initially in the author of a work. This is not so withstanding the fact that such author has been paid to create the work, or the work has been created in the course of his employment. So in this case, we have examples or cases whereby a photographer works in a particular studio, and by the nature of his job, he is to take photographs, maybe for clients or for anyone who is coming into that particular studio. Now, in the nature of it, it now depends on the part signed. If the contract, maybe an independent contract service, where the rights of the photograph for every photograph he takes belongs to him, then for every photograph he takes, the copyright in that photograph will belong to him. But if he does not have any definite agreement like that, then it means that the author of that photograph, although he's the one who took the photograph, but because he took the photograph in the course of his employment, the copyright in that photograph would belong to his employer. It is important that we state that under Section 10 sub 2 copyright, there's a provision which states the copyright shall belong to the author unless otherwise stipulated, which is what I have just explained. Now, what are the rights of a photographer? According to copyright law, a photographer is the only one with the authority to decide how their original works are used and shared. This covers the following uses of the copyrighted photo: duplication, creation of derivative works from, distribution of copies, public performance or display, digital transmission and licensing. Copyright rules give photographer the only authority to create the works such as digital works, reproduce and distribute copy of their images. Now, if the owner of an image wants to safeguard the image, they can either sign a contract or agreement with the photographer to override Section 10 of the Copyright Act. So if I want to take a photo and I want the copyright in that photo to be mine and not to be the photographer's, I will now sign a contract with the photographers. This photograph you are going to take of me, the right does not belong to you, but it belongs to me. So it now therefore means that we have no rights, no copyright in that particular photograph. Now, what are the takeaways concerning copyright and photography? Consent of using copyright symbol can create awareness to the general public to let them know that the photographs are owned by someone. Now, copyright, I've already stated that you don't need to register your photograph if you have the right to the copyright. But also, if you go a step ahead by using marks or anything to signify that this is your work, it will be stated clear that you know that this particular photograph belongs to this particular brand. Just like when you see Tiwa Bello taking Tiwa Bello's photograph, you would see underneath it that you will see a particular mark that shows that, okay, this is her work. So this moves on to digital watermark and image recognition marking information into a digital material in such a way that it is invisible to a human observer, but it's easily detected by a computer algorithm. A digital watermark is a transparent, invisible information pattern that is inserted into a suitable component of the data source by using a specific computer algorithm. Now, there are two types of watermark. Digital watermarks are signals added to digital data. It can be audio, video, or still images that can be detected or extracted later to assert the data. Digital watermarking techniques are a feasible method for the protection of ownership rights of digital media, such as data types. These include digital signatures, like what I just explained in Tiwa's Bello's photos, fingerprinting, broadcast, and publication secret communication. There are several images. If you check them online, you see that you do not have right to access the images in their pure form. Those images have kind of been locked and secured by the owners of such images. Now, watermarks are designed to be invisible or visible and can withstand modification like cropping, scaling, or screenshots. The process involves embedding the watermark, potential attacks or modification, and detection to extract. Now, watermarks are also a means for copyright owners to promote that is, visible watermarks are the signs or the embedded features that are added to an image that are visible to the public to see that, okay, this particular photo or this particular thing belongs to this particular person and their organizations. In the event of unauthorized usage, digital watermarks makes it easier to prove a copyright valid ownership. So if I have a work and I have already embedded my watermark on it, it is very obvious to the general public that this belongs to me, Favor. I can just design something like Favor Ogozi, and it is clear, and it's anyone who uses that image without my consent, I can prove to the public that this is now marks. First, the major benefit of watermarks are copyright. Digitalization has made it possible and effortless for anyone to infringe on intellectual property by manipulating or duplicating copyrighted material. Now we also have proof of ownership. When there's a watermark in an image, you just know that this belongs to this particular person. Now we move on to blockchain technology.
Okay, hello
for art.
Favor. Hello Favor. Great
Blockchain
job so
technology
far.
can be
Hello
used for
Favor. Can you hear me,
secure.
please?
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
good job so far. Please, due to time, would request that you kindly begin to round up, please. Thank you. As you're
Okay,
out
let me
of
first
time,
round up.
kindly begin to round up. Thank you.
All right. So I was just trying to explain blockchain technology and how it affects artworks. So if we are familiar with the blockchain space, we realize that space is actually very encrypted assets, or when you have something to do with, when you have a registered image or anything you want to do, is encrypted and no one has the right or access to that particular stuff. Like an example for art is the NFT. Now realize that in 2022, many persons made money just by using NFT. If you remember the story of a guy who an old woman or so and sold it as a non-forgivable token just because that right belongs to him and there was no way any other person could, take it from him. In conclusion, photographers like must appropriately compensated for its use. This is to prevent illegal. We also ensure an agreement with the photographer to avoid or listening. I think this is the end of our presentation for today.
Okay, great job, Favor.
Hello,
Great
can you hear
job.
me?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you. Great job. Great job. Indeed, I would say Group 1 returned with a bang this evening. A fantastic job from you on that presentation. I could almost say, who knows, probably we have 4 mentors today. Great job on your presentation. Although we had some issues with network, but you held your own and gave us a formidable presentation. Great job. Thank you again. Good job to Group 1. Mentees, please applaud Favor for an amazing presentation. Okay, in that same energy and strength, I think we're moving on to the next group. That's group 2 for their presentation. Please, group 2 presenter, the floor is yours. Over to you. Thank you very much. Hello, group 2. Please, group 2 presenter, can you take over, please? Thank you. Please, who's the presenter for group 2, please? Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me, please?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Please, group 2, can we have your presentation? Group 1 has set the tone this evening, and we'd love to quickly have group 2, as we do not have enough time hence tonight. Please, is there a backup presenter from group 2? Okay, we haven't got so much time here tonight, and I think it would be wise for us to keep moving irrespective of the groups that are ready. Okay, so we've heard from our group 1 presenter, and I believe our mentors have seen the slides of our mentees prior to today's class. So based on the slide and based on unfortunately to our mentors, we're so sorry meant to have 2 presenters for today, but based on what we have so far, we'd like to get your feedback and insight on the presentation so far, as well as the slides that were sent to you. Probably if there are things you would love to throw more light on the slides, or there are things you want to elaborate further on, please, this is that time. After now, we'll be going to our questions and answers. So over to our mentors. Of course, I think I would love to start with Mr. I hope I get this right. Please, over to you, sir.
My name is Ade Jumade, or you can call me the shorter version of it. That's completely okay. So yeah, I had the chance to look at both presentations, though only one could be presented here today. The second one, in girls group 2, they had a very colorful presentation. I like the way they presented, which was great. My notice, however, with regard to both presentations, is that I did not see anything about resolving disputes. So put yourself in a situation where you're writing a creative, or you're a creative as well, right? Like one of our speakers has said earlier, there are things you have to put in place to resolve disputes early. In fact, to ensure that your disputes do not even come up in the first place, or that problems do not come up in the first place. So I saw a lot about educating on what the rights are, what people needed to know, basically. But I did not see a lot of solution provided. So when someone is in a problem, right, or when someone has a legal situation or a business situation and they present it to you as a lawyer or as their advisor, right, they know basically what their rights are at that stage to a certain extent. Right? They know their rights because you know more as a lawyer. They have an idea of what their rights are, but they're in a dispute, right? And what they want is a solution to that dispute. So what I would love to see was issues surrounding disputes. Although one of the presenters, the presenter who spoke, also mentioned this the Court of Appeal rule in regards to photography, which I thought was great. So in terms of that, but I would love to see a lot of that in the presentation as well. And that goes for both presentations, but great job across board. good insight into the area that you discussed on. The only observation that I said is one, I didn't see disputes and a resolution for disputes. Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I'm sure our mentees will take that into consideration as they go into for further classes, to always know that when we have these kind of knowledges, one good thing for this knowledge is know how to solve disputes, because the reason for the education is to know this rights and how to solve disputes when they arise. People pay for people to solve their disputes. They won't just pay to have the knowledge, but then how do you help them solve their disputes when they arise? Thank you so much, sir. Mentees, I hope you've gotten that figured out. So for your next presentation of slides, you should put that into consideration, looking at disputes. Okay, so moving next. Up next, we want to move to beautiful Amusa Shkurat Mudipola for her take on the presentation as well as the slides that were sent earlier by the mentees. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
I don't think I have much to say. The previous mentor just mentioned about the dispute, although they did much on explaining copyright and the type of rights assigned to a copyright holder, but there was nothing like what constitutes infringement, right? How do you know when a work has been infringed? What do you have to look out for? At what point can you say this is infringement? They didn't touch on fair use, and that's a very big part when it comes to copyright. What constitutes fair use? No transformation. So there should be like a difference between adaptation or derivative work and a transformative work, because we come across this enough when we look at photography and artistic work, right? Is the work being adapted, or has it actually been transformed? And it has been transformed. Can you say it falls under fair use? What are the criteria for fair use? The purpose, the nature of use, the substantial amount of work used. So I think they just did a very thorough job on the basic copyright that we know, and they didn't go deep into the infringement and measures to take when there's infringement and so on and so forth. Just like the mentor said, as regards to arbitration or dispute resolution and so on and so forth. And in fact, I would like to mention that the Copyright Commission, in collaboration with WIPO, now have a dispute resolution board to address issues with regards to the creative industry, and that encompasses photography as well. So I think that's why I noticed that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And of course, I know that some of the questions you've actually asked out are things that were left out. I think they were left out because they're going to be questions during the Q&A session. For mentees, one beautiful thing about researching for your slides is to get you prepared, is to get the knowledge beforehand. Here at JIIPCC, the most important thing is learning beforehand, so that by the time you come, whatever the mentors are saying does not sound like Chinese or a new kind of knowledge to you. I know that in the world of IP, copyright, getting what fair use or what constitutes fair use is a whole lot. But great job to have our experts here tonight with us, and I believe before the end of today's session, we'll be able to know what constitutes fair use when it comes to copyright and maybe other aspects of intellectual property that probably has to do with photography. Okay, we'll move on to our next mentor to get insight as well on today's presentation as well as the slides that were sent. Of course, it's the amazing Zenona Phillips. Over to you, please, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. I have noticed that we don't have Ms. Phillips with us in the session anymore at the moment. Probably it could be a network glitch, and we'll probably have her back with us within the hour. We have some good time left for us today. Okay, so quickly we're going straight on to Q&A, questions and answer sessions. This is where we get to understand a whole lot of things on today's topic. It's about photography and visual works. Okay, so mentees, I want to employ that. So see that if you have live questions, you can put on the emoji for your hands to be raised, and we'll call on you to ask your question live. You get to see your face, hear your voice, hear you ask those questions. But if you want to go through the route of putting the questions or typing in the chat box, you're always welcome to do that. Okay, so quickly we're going to start off with our questions for today. More questions are going to be coming up as the session continues. But first up, we want to throw the big elephant in the building. What is the criteria? Oh, sorry, I think I sent that to one person. So we want to start with the big elephant in the building. What is the criteria for fair use? What would we say is the criteria for fair use? Okay, I want to start with Madam Shukurat. She said a whole lot about fair use over and over and over. What can we say distinctively are the criteria for fair use?
So to start with, what I like to say is copyright infringement is copyright infringement, irrespective of how you want to put it, right? But the law have provided a kind of a leeway for you to defend yourself using fair use. Now, because if you've not infringed, there's no point defending yourself through fair use, right? So probably there has been an infringement. Yes, there must have been an infringement, but you can now say, yes, you are trying to defend this infringement act based on fair use. Now, what is fair use? So when you look at it, and I also like to say IP rights is territorial in nature. So our laws in Nigeria might be different from the UK and the US law. So you want to know what your act says. In Nigeria, our act focused on what's it called? Fair dealing, not fair use. Okay, so in Nigeria, what is called is fair dealing. And if you check the new Copyright Act, you realize that they listed so many things compared to the old act, right? And at what point or what kind of work can you falls under fair use? Now, education. You are doing something to educate people and you want to use a copyrighted material. However, you are not commercializing it. Yes, fair use. So education, news reporting, or you want to report a news. Imagine there's an urgent issue. You want to report a news and you need somebody's photograph to report that news, but you are still trying to wait for authorization before you can put out the news. That means it's a news that's going to kill some people. People would have died before you get the authorization. Right? So these are the kind of things fair use is trying to avoid. So news reporting, parody, you are making joke of something. And there was this particular case then, I really can't remember. It was a parody case. So you're making joke out of something, news reporting. So all these kind of things they fall under fair use. Now let's go back to the issue of the artist, the ink artist trying to use somebody else to ink a photograph of somebody. Now, does this fall under any kind of fair use work or fair use rights? It doesn't, because it's not for educational purpose, right? It's not for news reporting. It's not for parody. It's not. So now, if a work doesn't fall under what they said should fall under fair use, but at the same time, the work does not commercialize, can we say it's passed as fair use? So you have to look at the nature. Now, the nature of the work. We have one photograph. We have one, what's it called? Inked tattoo, right? Now, the purpose of the work. What's the purpose of the photography one? What's the purpose of this inked one? For this one now, the purpose is not for commercial use. So we'll say, okay, fine. Commercial use pass. Or it's not for commercial use pass. Then you look at the market. Are they selling in the same market? Like if, let's say, for example, you're actually selling that market, will the sales of the artistic work, the inked work, diminish the return of the photographic work? So you want to look at that. Now you want to look at the amount, the substantial amount of work that was used. In this case of photography, like she drew everything. So it's like the substantial amount is large. It's a very big quantity. So are we saying if we put all of this together, can we actually say it's fair use? Now, I think the law of that jurisdiction was US. If it was another jurisdiction, the reverse might be the case. It could turn out as an infringement in another jurisdiction, depending on how they are able to analyze it. So there's no one way thing to it. You have to look at what does our law says, how do you see it, in what perspective, and so on and so forth. So you can't just sit down and say, yes, it's fair use, or no, it's not fair use. In fact, to shock you, some cases that you feel like it's fair use, it will be fair use. And those that you feel like it's supposed to be fair use, it will be infringement. So you just need to understand the law of your jurisdiction and how to apply it, basically. So that's what I'm going to say. And okay, let me answer the other part of adaptation and transformation. So adaptation is there's a copyrighted work and you are trying to adapt it into something else. So let's say God's Love wrote a novel and I want to adapt that novel and make it into a movie. That's adaptation. And if you realize, you see that under the rights that a copyright holder have, you have adaptation and translation. So even if I'm translating God's Love novel from English to Yoruba or to Igbo, I need permission from God's Love before I can do that. However, when it comes to transformation, you don't need the rights of the owner because you are transforming the work into something else different from the original work. So, and this is where the question comes in. How, at what point can you say a work has been transformed? Because you see, I've seen some cases whereby what they change is just the color red to color blue. And they said it has been transformed. I'm like, how can color red to color blue be transformed? Is it transformative or is it transformative enough for you to say that work has been transformed from the original work to the new work? And if you look at the Copyright Act, you realize that even if a copyrighted work infringed, even if a work infringed another copyrighted work, the fact that you infringe another copyrighted work doesn't mean you won't have copyright to your own work. You still have copyright to your work, despite the fact that, yes, you infringe another work. The only thing you just need to do is clear that infringement aspect by probably getting in touch with the person, probably you give yourself, you pay for it or something like that. But it doesn't mean that because you copied a work, you infringe on a work, it doesn't mean that the copyright in your own work is going to be taken away. No, it's not. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. I really like that particular clarification on transformation and adaptation as well as translation. I think that was easily expressed for someone to understand. And then the big question that is also arriving from there, the way to ensure that has this work been transformed enough? So I think at this point we say, is there a common reasonable man's test that will be used to consider if the work has been transformed enough to make it fall under transformation? Okay, over to amazing Legal Nigeria. Yes, I think I'll be using that now. It'll be easier for me to flow with that. Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, sir. So you've spoken.
Yeah,
Sorry, sir. You spoke earlier about dispute resolution. Still on this question, you spoke about dispute resolution earlier. What happens? You're still going to talk about fair use, but what happens where a particular work that has copyright protection, someone uses it for an educational purpose, which falls under fair dealing or fair use, but in using it for that educational purpose, there is commercialization. How then can the law solve such disputes where, in the face of it, it should fall under fair dealing or fair use because it's probably for an educational purpose, but in the usage, there's also commercialization while being used for an educational purpose. For example, we have these songs or these calendars they do for children that has to do with A for ball, A for apple rather, B for ball, and the rest of them. Imagine someone's face is used there for as a queen, so for a queen, is for educational purpose, no doubt. What happens now when they are selling this calendar to make money? So would you not have issues both ways? So while talking about fair use, also look into that scenario, start talk about dispute resolution. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so very much. I think the speaker before me has shared a lot of insights in this in regards to fair use. The only thing I would like to add is generally there are some factors you need to consider, to see if what you are appraising is fair use or not. So the first one is the purpose and character of your use. What are you using it for? This covers what you said about educational purposes, but I'll answer that at the end of this. The second one is the nature of the copyrighted work. The third one is the amount of and substantiability of the portion that you've taken from the work that you are, should I say, allegedly infringed on. And also the effective use on the potential market. For instance, will your work prevent the original owner from making profit on their own work? Does your work infringe on their ability to earn? Things like that are what is usually considered. Generally, in regards to dispute resolution, right? The truth is, creatives are not in a position, or I would say they're not in a place where they really enjoy resolving disputes. A lot of creatives are usually focused on their work. There's a lot of vibe that has to do with their work, a lot of mental space that they're in. So disputes kind of messes up that equilibrium for them. So they don't really like disputes naturally by virtue of their skill. And that's why when you're dealing with a creative, it's always important that you look into alternative dispute resolution methods, before you decide to do something like litigation. I tend to use litigation as the final option. Try and mediate, try and negotiate, try and arbitrate before you decide to go to litigation. So that's just generally in regards to dispute resolution in that regard. Now, particular to your question, where you mentioned about when something is used for educative purposes and there's a tinge of commercialization in it. The truth is, from what I understand you explain, your focus, I believe, was on academic education. When you're teaching a child rights, when you're teaching someone as regards to their academic, should I say, things that they do in school, that is different from education as it is mean in this regard. So if you have a rhyme, right, and you use someone's song for that rhyme, and you sell that rhyme to a school, or you sell it to YouTube, or you make some cash off it off Netflix, right? You cannot say that is fair use. Because like I said, the first thing that is going to be considered is the purpose of your use. But if I'm writing a blog on a certain art piece, on a certain sculpture, on a certain place, right, and I use your picture in that blog post, my blog is free. People can go there and read it as they like, especially when I attribute, that you are the owner of that picture. Then I can have a strong argument for fair use because I have not monetized it in any way. I think one important point is monetization, profit, value that comes from what is being discussed or what is being deliberated on. So yeah, that's what I'm saying that regard.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think mentees,
I'd
I
like
hope
to add
that's
something, Goslow.
okay. Go ahead,
And
please. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'll kind of direct it to the second speaker. So let's take a case of Just Too Funny, right? You know what it does is more of parody. It takes the copyrighted work and turn it into a laughing stock and, kind of make it funny and all. And we say parody falls under fair use. Now, because it's going to post it on social media platform, is not directly monetizing it, right? So you can't hold him and say, oh yes, we caught him monetizing, but he is indirectly making money from that, because when he puts it on his platform, people get to see it, it attracts so many people, one way or the other, the platform start paying him, right? So I would like the speaker to actually answer that question, because it's something we actually talk about, like, okay, fine. At what point can your social media followers amount to you monetizing something? Because truly, most of them get paid. You can't tell me that they don't get paid from doing all of these things. They get paid, but it's not a cash at hand kind of payment, right? They build their goodwill and all of that through doing that. Yes, it's not directly monetization, but that monetizing it indirectly. So what can we, it's just a discussion among all of us, what can we say that is it actually falls under fair use? Because that's one defense everybody has, like, oh, it's fair use, it's fair use, it's fair use, it's fair use that. You get. And I think Zerona is in now. Is she? Okay, no, she's not. She's not. I would have wanted her to also touch on it.
No, she's not. She's not. Okay, sir, over to you, sir. I'm enjoying tonight's discourse as usual.
Okay, if I could speak on that, on the issue of parody and how you have aligned with, most especially with social media, right? I'd like you to use yourself as an example. I'm assuming you have a social media platform that you post on, irrespective of which one it is. I'm also assuming that you have a number of followers on that social media platform. So I'm playing the devil's advocate here. Are you getting paid? Are you getting paid for the number of followers that you have by the platform? Let's say by Facebook or by Instagram or by X. Are you getting paid for that? What you might get paid for is maybe a brand sees that you have a large following, right? And they say, maybe post something on your page for us, or do a skit for us. Then the nature of the payment is more clear. But one cannot just say generally that you are benefiting. Yes, you are benefiting in a certain sense, that people follow your page, people like to read your page, people look forward to the information that you share. But that alone in itself doesn't transform to money. Now, when someone brings money to the table, right, what they are looking at is your overall package, all the followers you have, how people like to engage with you, how many people comment on your post, and that is beyond just one post or beyond just one picture. So that's how I just explain that. So when you are analyzing that, one cannot just say, because people are liking your page because of the kind of content that you post, that means you're making money off it directly. Indirectly. I think it has to be more direct or more ascertainable, not just the number of followers that you have. Because if that is the case, then almost everybody will be subject to that rule. That means if I post content that doesn't belong to me because I gained one follower from it, I can be liable to someone for infringement. So, IP rights looks at the rights of the creator and also the rights of the general public who observe that creation as well. I hope I've been able to explain it a bit.
Yes, thank you for your
Okay.
response. So the reason why I asked was because I came across some judgment whereby the judge actually focused on the kind of, just like you have, okay, fine, there's a case ongoing right now. I think it is it's maybe Kim Kardashian also. She bought a fake product. Now this is more of a design patent. So there's the original furniture person has a design on the furniture, right? And Kim Kardashian bought the fake product, right? As she put it on YouTube, And they're, oh, I like bought this furniture, blah, 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 this and that. And because of the kind of personality she has so many subscribers, so many followers. Now, directly or indirectly, she's promoting that product. Now, the original owner of the design, the registered design, saw the video and sued both Kim and the fake person that is producing it. Right? So what the judge was trying to say is because of the kind of followers, the kind of audience that she has, she's a part of that infringement because she's promoting it. So I'm just trying to let us look at the issue of this followers thing or the followers thing. Can you actually say because of, if you did not parody that work, will you initially get that visibility you got in the first place? So that's the angle I'm looking at it from. Because there's this other case as well, whereby looking at the kind of followers, the kind of jobs you got through that post. Do you get? The judge asks the person to give the other person a particular share and this and that. I know we don't have concrete laws to guide it or to back it up, but there's some jurisdictions that look at it from that perspective.
Also, you know that people now monetize their Facebook, monetize their YouTube, monetize TikTok. So the question is, who pays them now in that regard? There are people who get money off TikTok. I know I was going to ask who pays them on that app. People who monetize their YouTube and get based on the engagements they get on posts and all that. I know like most of our filmmakers in Nigeria are going over to YouTube, monetizing their YouTube page. I think they get paid by YouTube. I think I'm not sure on that.
If I could speak on that, I think first of all we should focus on each platform and its particular way of payment. X, for instance, now has a form of payment, right? And but they don't pay people per follower. They pay you per engagement. It depends on how many people are engaging on your post. So you might not have a lot of followers, but you have a lot of engagement, and you make more money on X than the person that has a lot of followers. So in that regard, one individual post, because if you're talking about infringement, we're talking about maybe you posted something, right? Or maybe a series of posts. One individual post in that regard cannot alone, be the subject within which you be liable to infringement. So, but now let us look at YouTube, for instance. YouTube is different from X because on YouTube, you are paid per view. So if a lot of people view your content, right, then you get paid a certain amount of money. So if that content you posted is not your own, right, someone can sue you for posting that content and making money off it and asking you to provide a statement of all the money that you made off that content, particularly when you don't have a license, to do that. But like I said, every case is going to have to be addressed according to its own particulars. I don't think there's a one size fits all for all of them or all of the posts. That's my position though.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mentees, I hope your pens, papers, your recorders are doing such a great job at this point because a lot of eye openers here for as many of us who are doing the content creating thingy know that if you copy someone's work and go to put it on especially YouTube as your own work, as you're cashing out, you will need a lawyer, please. You would need a lawyer. The lawyer to cash out through you. Thank you very much for your service to humanity.
Then quick one, just to buttress what you just said. You realize that a lot of these platforms, right, they also have a consent form or their terms and conditions, They always have it somewhere there that says what you are posting, you have the right to post it. So if you didn't have that right in the first place and you posted it as yours, just like you're saying, and posting someone else's content, then you might be liable for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, while we were discussing earlier, Rachel has sent a question in the chat box. The question reads, is there a template for photography release agreement, or how do we go about drafting some of these agreements for creatives? I believe release forms for photographers or photography. Are there key things a release form should have? What is a release form, or what a release agreement? What are the key ingredients a release agreement should have? I know one of our sessions we talked about a one-pager release document, if they remember. So I think we also love to hear our mentors talk about release documents. I had my birthday pictures taken sometime in February. I went to the release um, contract. Funny enough, I sent a very, very simple one-pager release form. Gave to the photographer. He was very much obliged to sign. And when he signed, I found out that he was not the one taking the picture. His boy was taking the picture. I brought out a second paper and a second copy and asked the boy as well, you're going to sign as well, you're the one taking the picture. I don't know your contract with the photographer. Before tomorrow, I will hear that in your studio, you don't have a work for hire contract, which means, or rather, there's a work for hire contract, or there was none eventually, and the work belonged to the person who took the photo. So please sign so I can get my pictures in peace. And thank God for grace, they signed in peace. Anyway, back to our resident mentors here and experts in that field. What we say are photography or release agreements or forms, and what are essential parts of these forms if one is to use them? Thank you. Any of our
If I
mentors
might
speak
speak
up?
on that, yeah, if I might speak on that, I want you to also understand that release forms also work wider than photography. So they work in other areas as well, aside from photography. And I'll give you an example. You're shooting a movie on a busy Lagos road. A waka pass, right, just passes the back of the camera. And when you publish the film, or when you start to promote it and people start to watch it, that person sees himself, and he can come at you and say, hey, you don't have my permission to do this. Especially because that person knows you're making a lot of money from the movie that you have made. So you'll be surprised that when films are being made, right, there are companies whose role is to find waka pass. So you have the actors, the actresses, there are people whose job is to just find the person that will waka pass. That person is given a release form. So I just said to share that example so that we know that release forms are not solely regarding photography.
Yes, during
Then I
their
want
session
us to
on
be
film, I think that was when they heard about the release forms for the first time. So you're trying to bring it also to the photography
great,
aspect as well.
great. I understand. Now, in regards to the release form, I want us to be careful of the words that we're using, right? So there's a licensing agreement and there's a release form. Though it might seem as if both are similar, there are differences. A licensing agreement assigns or transfers the intellectual property in that creation. So for instance, in that picture, when a photographer takes your picture, when he transfers that title to you, the intellectual property in that picture, it is via a licensing agreement. He transfers the license. So that is a little bit more formalized and serious, unlike a mere release form, right? So what is essential in an agreement, of course, is the terms and clauses that are included in it, right? So irrespective of what you called it, right, it is the terms and clauses that are in it that both parties agree to that the court will use in evaluating, the rights of each of the parties. So you have to be careful that when you're drafting either a release form or a licensing agreement, you have to be sure that you're not leaving out some clauses, particularly on the licensing agreement. So yes, it can be a one-pager, right? But some licensing agreements, depending on what is being contracted and depending on what that license is being taken for, right, can be a lot more than one page. What should the licensing agreement have? Generally, what most contracts have, the first thing, the parties, right? What is being licensed? So, who owns the license? Who is receiving the license? Who is transferring the license? Is there any consideration for the transfer of the license? Is any amount being paid? And what is the essence of that assignment of the license? Is it a final transfer, right? A final assigning of the rights in that item that was created, or is it a license to use it for a particular purpose, right? So I can give you a license for you to print my art on t-shirts because you have come to me and you've told me, now this is the business side to it. You've come to me and you've told me, oh, I want to take your license. I want to take a license of your art. I want to put it on a t-shirt and sell, and you also get a certain percentage of the sales. I've given you the license for a t-shirt. What if I see that my art that I've given you a license for, if I see it on ads, ads by maybe a big brand, right? Then I'm going to say that you've infringed on what I gave you the license for. So those are the terms. You have to be particular about that. And also if there's a duration, like I said, is it a final assignment or is it an assignment for a period of time? And what are the obligations of those parties even after that assignment? So is someone going to get paid? How much is the person going to get paid? What is the obligation of the person giving the license? And I'll give you an example. There is a big brand. It could be male or female. It could be a singer, songwriter, producer. There's a big brand, and someone comes to meet that brand and says, you know what, I want to use your license to market a particular product, right? And while I am marketing that product, you're going to get 20% of that contract, right? And all the sales that we made. But you also have a duty to market the product as well, right? So the marketing is just going to be all on me because what sells is that person. I'll use an example. We all know Wizkid, right? If I wanted to put Wizkid's name or image on a t-shirt, for example, right? It will have a lot of following or it will have a lot of acceptance from the public. If Wizkid himself posts either himself wearing that t-shirt, right? Or he posts it on his page or he tells people, oh, you know what? Go and buy this t-shirt. All those kind of things need to be documented. That's why sometimes the licenses agreement may be more than one page, right? Usually it's more than one page. But the other one, which is a release form, that is usually a one-pager really because there's nothing much you're saying. What you're saying is, I am releasing you from any obligation to use either my name or my image in any way you so choose. So that is.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I hope that was clarified enough. I don't know if Madam Amusta has anything to add to that. So we can move on with today. Okay. Moving forward, please, do we have any other questions from our mentees? We're a few minutes to the end of today's session. Do you have any other questions from our mentees for our mentors? Okay, Rachel. Do you have any other question, please? So that we could quickly ask our mentors and hear their insights on them. But it's been a fantastic and a fabulous time here at the Entertainment Business and Law course at the JIIPCC 2024 first and second quarter mentorship and internship program. It's been simply amazing. We've had amazing mentors who have been giving us amazing wisdom Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're down to the last few minutes of today's session, and we're hoping to have one final question from our mentees. But in the absence of that, I want to say quickly, let's say in a few minutes, 2 minutes or thereabouts per mentor or 3 minutes per mentor, just give us your final words on today's topic, some key things you think the mentees should have in their minds when it comes to photography, business, visual art business, the law, and how it operates. Some key things you think you want to highlight these words for them to have an understanding on it in general. Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Onibokon, please, sir.
Yes, the only thing I'd like to add in this regard is that number one, have a checklist. Okay, so if you're engaging in whatever form of contracting, have a checklist and run through that checklist. What are the things that should be covered in this agreement that I'm drafting or this business that I want to do? What are the essential terms and clauses that I need to pay attention to? So have a checklist. It makes things easier for you. That way you are very thorough and you don't get to miss things because there are times where you write an agreement or you draft an agreement and you miss out on an essential clause that will have protected your client. And sometimes it might even be opposing counsel that drafts that agreement and intentionally left that clause out to protect their own client, but of course to the detriment of your client. That is if you are a lawyer, right? So always have a checklist, it helps you. Then also understand that law is fine, but business is also very important, right? You must not be so legalistic that the business suffers detriment due to that. So pay attention to that. Because if you're a lawyer and you are being too legalistic and it's affecting the business, your clients are not going to be happy and they might most likely take another lawyer to fill the role that you're playing. So it's very important. Don't be too legalistic that you do not pay attention to the business of things, because actually it is the money that is being made that is used to pay your fees. And even if you're a creative as well, be sure to be able to draw a very good line between the business and the legal aspect. I'm not saying you should let go of the rights or that you should not protect your rights, or that you should not adequately protect yourself. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that always try and draw a level ground and a win-win situation. Be sure that while your rights are protected, the business is also protected and being encouraged as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for those final words. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, so over to Madam Amusa Shukiwat Mudipola for our final words and final key points she thinks our mentees should have in mind when it comes to photography, visual arts, of course, the business and the law. Over to you, ma'am. Okay. So I just noticed that she's no longer with us here, which means that brings us to the end of today's fantastic session. It's been a great, insightful session. A big thank you to our mentors for keeping it real with us here and giving us so much insight and wisdom. A big thank you to Mr. Onibokun for being with us throughout today's session. Thank you so much, sir, for your wisdom, for your insights. They've been really educational for us. And of course, the Gypsy family says thank you to Sister Musa Modipola. Thank you so much, ma'am, for also being with us throughout up to when you had to leave. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your insights. We take it so greatly here at Gypsy. Of course, to Sonora, who was here as well. Ms. Phillips, thank you so much for her wisdom and insights as well. That was really an amazing session. And of course, I want to say a big thank you to our mentees for being with us throughout today's session. You've been always amazing, phenomenal. I hope by the next time we have 2 presentations from our 2 groups. But thank you as well to our presenter today, Favor, for a phenomenal presentation. That was a great job. Thank you for staying with us throughout the day. I want to say thank you to Sophie, who has been with us throughout today's call as well. Thank you to Gypsy for this opportunity. That's the much we can take on week 5 here at Determined Business and Law at the Gypsy MIP 2024 first and second quarter. My name is Goslav Kamaluni. It's been an absolute honor moderating today's session, a very fabulous session. And after this, I want to say we draw the curtain here and have a very, very fabulous night. Do not forget, create the idea, protect it, police it, monetize it, and of course, learn how to work with it. It is yours to work with, and have a very, 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 very fantastic creative evening. Good night. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much, sir. It was really an honor having you with us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.